So, this is the last episode of the series, and I want to do something a little different today.
Different? How?
Every episode we have done has been about a specific thing: AI video generation, ChatGPT Ads, Performance Max, agentic content systems, and in every one of those episodes, we have talked about the opportunity, what's possible, what the number looks like, why now.
Which is all true, by the way. None of that was exaggerated.
No, it wasn't, but today I want to have the conversation that usually happens after the episode. The one where someone messages us and says, "Okay, I heard you. I want to build this." And then what actually happens?
The real version?
Yeah, the real version. Because the gap between understanding that autonomous marketing is possible and actually operating it inside a real organization is a gap that most content about this topic just skips over entirely.
And I think that gap is the most important thing to talk about. Because the tools exist, the case studies exist, the ROI data exists, and yet most brands are still not there.
So, today we are going to talk about why that is and what it actually takes. No hype, just where things honestly stand.
Let's start with the thing that I think trips people up first, which is that autonomous marketing sounds like you set something up and then it runs itself and you go home.
And that is not what it is.
That is really not what it is. Autonomous doesn't mean unattended. It means the system handles the execution layer without needing a human to do each individual task manually. But someone still has to design the system. Someone still has to feed the right inputs. Someone still has to read what it's doing and make strategic decisions about where it goes next.
The analogy I keep coming back to is a pilot and an autopilot. The autopilot can fly the plane, it genuinely can. But the pilot decides where the plane is going, handles anything unexpected, and stays responsible for the outcome.
And a pilot who doesn't understand how the autopilot works is actually more dangerous than no autopilot at all.
Exactly. And right now, that's the situation a lot of marketing teams are in. They are being told to implement AI systems before they fully understand what those systems are doing or what they need to function well.
Which leads to the second thing that trips people up: data quality. And I cannot stress this one enough.
Every autonomous marketing system we have talked about in this series, whether it's a campaign orchestrator, an AI content engine, a self optimizing ad system, every single one of them runs on data, and the quality of the output is a direct reflection of the quality of the input.
I have seen brands spend significant money standing up automation workflows and then wondering why the results are mediocre. And almost every time when you dig in, the underlying data is a mess. The CRM hasn't been cleaned up in 2 years. The audience segments are based on assumptions that nobody has validated. The conversions tracking has gaps in it.
And the AI just amplifies whatever is already there. If the data is good, the AI makes it faster and smarter. If the data is bad, the AI make mistakes at scale and at speed.
Which is far worse than making mistakes slowly.
So before anyone listening to this goes and starts building autonomous systems, the honest first question is not which tools should I use? It's what does my data infrastructure actually look like right now?
And most people don't love that answer because cleaning data and fixing tracking isn't exciting. There's no launch moment. You can't post about it on LinkedIn, but it is foundational work that everything else sits on.
The brands we see getting real results from this stuff almost always have one thing in common. They spent time on the boring infrastructure before they touched the exciting tools.
Okay, so let's talk about what it looks like when it does work. Because this series has not been about warning people away from autonomous marketing, it's been about helping people get there properly.
And when it works, the outcomes are generally different in kind, not just in degree. It's not that the team is a little more efficient or a little faster. The whole operating model changes.
I want to give a concrete picture of this. Think about a brand running seasonal campaigns, which is relevant for almost every consumer category in India: summer, festive, back to school, whatever the season is.
In a traditional setup, the season is approaching. There is a briefing cycle, an agency is brought in, creative is developed, media is planned, everything gets approved through multiple layers. By the time the campaign launches, you have consumed 2 to 3 weeks of the actual season just in the setup.
And then you run the campaign. And around week 4, you get a performance report. And the report tells you that one creative is performing significantly better than the others. So you shift budget to it. But at that point, the season might be half over.
Now think about what the same cycle looks like with an autonomous system running. The brief goes in, the system generates 15 creative variants. Because we talked about AI video last episode, the cost of generating 15 variants is negligible now. Those variants go through an automated approval flow that takes hours, not days.
The campaign launches with all 15 variants live simultaneously. Within 48 hours, the system has real performance data. It starts allocating more budget to the variants that are converting. It pauses the ones that aren't. It generates new variants based on what's working.
And none of that required a single manual intervention. The team wakes up on day 3 with a campaign that has already optimized itself based on real market feedback.
And on day 10, when a heatwave hits a particular city and there's an opportunity to be contextually relevant, the system can generate and deploy a localized creative in hours instead of waiting for a brief to be written and approved and produced.
That's a difference we are talking about. Not small efficiency gains, a completely different speed of operation.
And over a full season that compounds. The brand running this way ends the season with hundreds of data points about what works for which audience in which context. The brand running the traditional way ends the season with a handful of assets and a general sense of what performed okay.
The data asset alone is worth more than the cost of building the system.
And this is the part that most ROI conversations about AI miss. People calculate the savings on production costs or the hours saved on manual tasks. Those are real. But the compounding intelligence is the bigger number and it's harder to quantify upfront.
Which is why we keep saying the brands that start building now have an advantage that is generally hard to close later. Because 6 months of learning compounds, a year of learning compounds a lot.
So let's end with something practical. If someone has listened to this whole series and they are sitting in a marketing leadership role or a consulting role and they are thinking about where to actually start, what does that look like?
The first honest thing that I would say is don't start with the most complex thing. Every episode in this series has covered something that is genuinely powerful, but implementing all of it at once is how projects fail.
Pick one use case, one specific content problem that the business has right now. Maybe it's the speed of getting social content out. Maybe it's the volume of creative variants for paid campaigns. Maybe it's a reporting cycle taking too long.
Pick that one thing, build a workflow around it, learn how your team actually works with it, understand what breaks and what doesn't, and then expand from there.
The brands that are furthest along with this right now didn't start with a grand autonomous marketing transformation. They start with a small workflow that solved a specific pain point and then let it grow.
The second thing is to be realistic about the internal change management side of this because the technology is honestly the easier part. The harder part is that autonomous systems change what people's job look like and that creates friction even when people intellectually agree that the change is good.
Marketers who have built their careers on execution skills are being asked to shift into systems thinking and strategic oversight. That is not a small ask. And the organizations that handle this well are the ones that give people time, training, and room to develop those new skills rather than just dropping new tools on them overnight.
The third thing, and this is the one I feel most strongly about, is that the quality of your strategy upstream of the automation matters more now, not less. There is a misconception that autonomous marketing means strategy matters less because the machine handles everything.
The opposite is true because when the machine is executing at speed and at scale, a bad strategic call gets amplified just as fast as good one. You don't have the slow production cycle to catch it before it goes out.
So, the human value in all of this is not in the execution anymore. It's in the quality of the brief, the clarity of the positioning, the sharpness of the audience understanding, the soundness of the strategy. Those things matter more than ever.
And for consulting teams, that's actually a significant opportunity because the brands that need help with autonomous marketing don't just need help with the tools, they need help thinking clearly about strategic before the automation runs with it.
The tool setup is a few weeks of work. The strategic foundation it sits on takes longer and is worth significantly more.
Alright, we have covered a lot of ground in this series. AI video generation, ChatGPT ads, performance max, and the question of whether Google is running your campaigns more than you are, agentic content system, GEO, all of it. And this last conversation has been the one that connects all of those threads.
The tools are real, the results are real, the work required to get there is also real. And the brands that go into this with clear eyes about all three of those things are the ones that come out the other side with something that actually works.
That's the honest version. That's where things stand.
Thanks for being here for all of it. If this series has been useful, share it with someone who is still figuring out where to start. And if you want to have a real conversation about what building this looks like for your brand or your clients, you know where to find us.
See you on the next one.